In a convent, Sister Mary prays to an image of Mother Mary for several minutes. Then she takes off her veil and moves the painting to hide some writing on the wall. After grabbing her bag, Mary sneaks into the Mother Superior's bedroom to steal her keys afterwards to the front gate and desperately tries all the keys to open it. At that moment, she falls as she reaches the other side, and a nun grabs her ankle to pull her back, breaking Mary's leg by pushing it against the fence bars. The unbearable pain makes her pass out. When Mary wakes up, she lights a match and finds herself inside a coffin. She cries as she tries to open it, but it won't even budge, which indicates she's been buried alive. Mary keeps yelling for help, but nobody comes. Sometime later, Maria is in the Italian customs office where a soldier is checking her back. Another officer points out that she doesn't have a return ticket and that she hasn't learned any Italian, so the process takes longer. Both men think she's wasting her youth by joining a convent. She's then given her paperwork and allowed to leave. Deacon Enzo picks Cecilia up, and they drive for hours. The Mother Superior welcomes her in Italian, and Cecilia doesn't understand, so Sister Isabel translates for her. When Mother Superior asks Isabel to show Cecilia her room, Isabel tries to refuse, but Mother Superior forces her to do it anyway. On the way to the room, Isabel shares that the convent was built in 1632 as a refuge for elderly sisters. The building is on top of the street. Stephen catacombs, which are off limits. The rooms full of older women, and Isabel, friendly, says hi to everyone, only to then tell Cecilia about the nun who will die next week because of a tumor. Cecilia is shocked by how casual she speaks about it, and Isabel explains that death is part of the convent's everyday life. When an elderly nun with dementia named Francesca asks about her father, Isabilia, that it's better to play along with her delusions unless they get violent, Isabel then drags her to her new room while sharing the schedule. When Cecilia said she's honored to serve, Isabel calls her sweet as an insult and warns her that this is a hard place to live in. Later, when Cecilia is using the toilet, go and suddenly burst into smoke. In secret, they start chatting, and Cecilia shares that her previous she was Tedeschi, who, according to Gwen, is very talented at finding runaways. In the evening, a special service is held so the novices can finally take their vows. The girls walk down the corridor with candles in their hands, and Cecilia finally gets to meet Father to ask you in person. Cardinal Franco gives Mass and talks to each novice individually. She is happy to take the vows, but hesitates a bit before kissing Franco's ring. Afterward, there's a dinner party to celebrate the new sisters. Cecilia chats with Tedeschi, who admits he liked science when he was younger, but eventually God showed him a path. In return, Cecilia shares that when she was 12, she went to play on the frozen river. Unfortunately, the ice broke, and she fell into the extremely cold water. She reasoned, and she wanted to find out why. When Cecilia goes to the bathroom, she hears a strange sobbing voice. She follows the noise to the chapel and finds a woman praying on the floor of a room behind the altar. Cecilia comes closer to check on her and is shocked to see the woman's face covered by a weird red mask. Suddenly, Cecilia, who assurance while the woman talks about Jesus' suffering, Cecilia starts feeling dizzy and passes out the next day. Cecilia goes to confession and blames her fainting on having too much wine, so she apologizes for disgracing herself in front of Mother Superior and promises to do better. The priest in the booth doesn't say a word. He just glances at her before CEC fusion, when suddenly two hands reach through the wall and drag her back. A terrified Cecilia is dropped on a bed in a strange room, and 5 nuns with red masks appear in front of her. Mysterious hands hold her face before a masked nun stabs her with a dagger. But at that moment, Cecilia wakes up. When she looks around, she's shocked to see Francesca staring at her from the door. In the morning, Mother Superior talks to all the young nuns about their new duties aboard. Gwen keeps chatting with Cecilia, and Mother Superior has to scold her. Afterward, Isabel shows the new nuns how to do the chores in the convent, including washing the bedroom, elderly doing the laundry, and killing the chickens for dinner. Isabel staring at her from afar, but she quickly disappears. That night, Cecilia wakes up when she feels something and discovers Francesca cutting some of her hair. Francesca calls Cecilia blessed and says everyone adores her, but Cecilia doesn't understand her Italian. Then Cecilia takes her in, not realizing that she's being called Saint Cecilia. The blankets aren't big enough to cover Francesca's feet, and Cecilia takes a closer look to find strange scars shaped like crosses. The following day, Cecilia tells when everything that happened and admits this place isn't what she expected. However, Gwen says this is better than her last place. There was a boy who kept hitting her, so she hit him back, and as punishment, Gwen was sent to a support group. They were her inspiration to become a nun. Suddenly, Cecilia throws up. So she goes to see Dr. Gallo, who runs some tests. While waiting, Cecilia hears a noise and looks outside to find a mass non-wandering. At that moment, a crow crashes on the window and startles Cecilia into looking away. After a quick look at the bird's body, Cecilia follows Mother Superior to the office where Franco, Tedeschi, and Gallo are waiting for her. A very angry Franco too. Then Cecilia is taken to the infirmary, and Gallo uses an ultrasound scanner to reveal that she's pregnant. After the initial shock, Franco declares that this child was conceived without sin and therefore as a miracle. However, Cecilia can only stare at the screen, and horror, later she was chosen. Tedeschi points out that this could be the reason why she was saved as a kid and reminds her that the meek shall inherit the earth. Afterwards, Cecilia is given special ceremonial clothes and taken to the chapel so all the nuns can sing their praises to her. 5 months later, Cecilia wakes up with morning sickness. Then she goes to breakfast, and everyone stands up in her presence except for Gwen. Cecilia is given good food and told not to work because she must concentrate on the baby. Gwen mockingly says that they'll start to call her Mary. Later, Cecilia is relaxing in the bathing pool when suddenly Isabel pushes her underwater, trying to drown her. After some struggle, Cecilia manages later walk. She sees 2 of the masked nuns at her window. At that moment, a nun falls from the roof, and everyone in the garden screams. Cecilia runs to check on the body and discovers it's Isabel, whose face has been completely wrecked during the funeral. That she doesn't trust this place. In fact, she isn't sure if she can trust what's in Cecilia's belly. Either Tedeschi interrupts them, but Going ignores him and loudly calls out her superiors, demanding to know what's truly going on. She calls everyone a liar using dirty words, so Tedeschi and Enzo have to drag her away. That night, Cecilia can't sleep. Suddenly, one of the chains on a painting breaks, leaving it hanging crookedly. Images. She checks her own Bible and reads about Satan masquerading as an angel of light. Getting worried, was looking for Gwen, but can't find her in the bedroom. Then she goes to the office to get her file, but the drawer is locked. She freezes when she hears a noise and sees a light in the neighboring room, but luckily it quickly disappears. When Cecilia finds a knife, she uses it to finally open the drawer and get her file. There's a newspaper article about her accident and some DNA test results. Suddenly, Cecilia here is going yelling and follows the noise outside. Her voice comes from behind a wooden door, and Cecilia peeks in through the keyhole. One has been strapped to a chair, and the masked nuns are using tools to cut off her tongue. A terrified Cecilia steps away, and someone catches her from behind, but it's just Francesca who gets her an amulet that she made with her hair. Cecilia asks her to help her leave, only for Francesca to tell her in English that she'll never leave the convent. The next morning, everyone wakes up when they hear Cecilia screaming the super and find her belly bleeding. Today is Galler's day off, so Mother Superior wants to take her to the hospital. At first, Tedeschi refuses, but Cecilia keeps begging for her life, so he takes her to Enzo's car. After the group leaves, Mother Superior prays in Cecilia's room. At that moment, she sees a feather on the floor on the road. Tedeschi gets a call informing him to try with her again. Afterwards, Cecilia goes to the infirmary, and Gallo confirms the baby is fine. She mentions what Isabel said and asks for an explanation, but Tedeschi claims that Isabel has been mentally ill for a while and he'll make sure that this won't happen again. Getting nervous later, when Cecilia goes for a walk, she sees two of the masked nuns at her window. At that moment, a nun falls from the roof, and everyone in the garden screams. Cecilia runs to check on the body and discovers it's Isabel, whose face has been completely wrecked during the funeral. In fact, you can trust what's in Cecilia's belly. Either Tedeschi interrupts them, but one ignores him and loudly calls out her superiors, demanding to know what's truly going on. She calls everyone a liar using dirty words, so Tedeschi and Enzo have to drag her away that night. She checks her own Bible and reads about Satan masquerading as an angel of light. Getting worried, Cecilia goes looking for Gwen, but can't find her in the bedroom. Then she goes to the office to get her file, but the drawer is locked. She freezes when she hears a noise and sees a light in the neighboring room. But luckily, it quickly disappears when Cecilia finds a knife. There's a news accident and some DNA test results. Suddenly, Cecilia hears going yelling and follows the noise outside. Her voice comes from behind a wooden door, and Cecilia peeks in through the keyhole. One has been strapped to a chair, and the masked nuns are using tools to cut off her tongue. Terrified, Cecilia asked her to help her leave, only for Francesca to tell her in English that she'll never leave the convent. The next morning, everyone wakes up when they hear Cecilia screaming. The superiors run to her room and find her belly bleeding. Today is Galler's day off, so Mother Superior wants to take her to the hospital. At first, Askew refuses, but sincerely after the group leaves, Mother Superior prays in Cecilia's room at that moment on the floor and looks under the bed to find a dead chicken that Cecilia used for her fake bleeding. On the road, Tedeschi gets a call informing him